This conversation is about bravery. It's about leaning into natural curiosity, experimenting, finding a way to create something for yourself that possibly wasn't there before, and finding your passion. I think you're going to enjoy this one.
You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗏.
Hello there, my friend, and welcome back if you're a returning listener. And if you're new to me or the show, I'm 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗏, your host on this conversational journey. This is a place where we have down-to-earth, practical conversations about the ways in which our personal brands meet the humans we serve. Today, we're adding another conversation to my series where I'm talking to people from completely different fields of expertise who come on and share how they are faring, shaping a version of themselves that they're happy to share with the outside world and what that looks and feels like for them. Today, I'm pleased to welcome someone I've been following on Instagram for a while, and I'm so chuffed that she's agreed to come and share herself with us today. So let me give you a bit of an introduction to her and then we'll jump straight into our conversation. Sam Linsell is a trained chef, professional food stylist, photographer, recipe developer, and author based in Cape Town. She founded her blog, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘, back in 2010 and has since grown it into a thriving business, an award-winning food platform with over 1,000 tested recipes, trusted by home cooks, food lovers, and global brands alike. She's developed and published 3 cookbooks, won a Gourmand World Cookbook Award, and was a finalist in the Best in the World pastry category, and has been recognized in the 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘 Awards as the Digital Food Influencer of the Year for 2021, 23, 24, and 25, and shared the 26 award for Food Content Creator of the Year. The reason Sam loves her work so much is because she gets to do the things that fill her with joy, which are eating good food, creating new dishes, traveling, and meeting new chefs. Welcome, Sam.
Hi.
To kick off our conversation, Sam, I think I'd like you to just share how you came to do what you're doing today with, at the point of recording, 55,000 followers on Facebook, 70,000 on TikTok, and nearly 100,000 on Instagram. So walk us back to the beginning, Sam. And I'm going to preempt our listeners by saying I started my agency, which was Social Media Specialist, back in the same time. And the digital, or at least online marketing world, was a completely different animal than it is today. So go ahead, give us your story, Sam.
Yes, so 2010, that puts me in sort of the geriatric category in terms of the internet. So it's amazing to still be here after all this time and to sort of have evolved over all the last couple of 16 years, essentially, being in business. And when I started out with my website, the word influencer, or all the names that I'm now known for, didn't exist really. So it's been quite a journey, I must say. I started back in the day because I wanted to share my recipes online. I at the time was a food stylist working mainly in the TV sector. I'd started a cupcake business, and a friend of mine suggested that I start a blog. And at that time, blogs were taking off all over the world. And I watched a movie called Julia and Julia, essentially about a food blogger documenting her experience with Julia Child's recipes. And that I thought that sounds like a fun thing to do. So I actually created a recipe and took a photograph of it and just published it on a basic WordPress website. And it was like something like a bug had bitten. It was almost like it just felt amazing. And from then onwards, I just carried on doing that, essentially publishing roughly 3 to 4 recipes a week in the beginning, and just consistently did that for the next few years. And just an amazing experience.
Yeah. So you've skipped the part where you actually did work for, and we love it here over in the UK, but Nando's. So you worked within the marketing department at Nando's, and some of that marketing knowledge actually helped you kind of in building the business, didn't it?
So I came from a corporate background, and that's why I started this quite late in life. I was 37 years old, and I decided, I worked for Nando's in the marketing department, and it was such an amazing experience for me. It sort of gave me a sense of entrepreneurship, the way that they managed the staff and the marketing. And it was just a really fun company, working with amazing products, amazing people. And it just gave me the sense that this is something around food creativity that I really liked. I decided to resign from my job. I was living in Johannesburg at the time. I sold my house. I took some of that money and I decided to move back to Cape Town and take a midlife sabbatical and build a dream life around food creativity. And at that time, I didn't really know exactly what that would be. I just knew that I wanted to take some time out and decide my next direction, which was an amazing privilege to be able to.
And you'd already within that job, you were already working with food stylists and that. So you were already kind of playing in the space and seeing what those guys were actually doing for work, right? And that kind of, built.
Yeah. So before that, and in my previous jobs, my 7 years working in food marketing in Johannesburg, I'd worked with top food stylists, and I'd taken approximately 100 products to market in my career. So there was a lot of food shoots, and I was always present at the shoots, arranging food on the plate. Sometimes I would even assist, and I just loved the process. And I actually just after I resigned, I contacted Vanessa Hickey, who is a very well-known food stylist in Johannesburg, and I asked her if she was perhaps doing any courses in food styling, and it so happened she was putting on the first ever course for this, because it's an unusual craft, and
it was very new at the time.
Very new, and not many people were food stylists. Kind of like a dark art, you had to get into it, and so I was very lucky to get onto the course, which I did, and gave me quite a good grounding. But then that little bit of a sort of introduction, plus what I already knew and my exposure, plus I had been passionate about food for so long, my whole life. So it kind of felt like a natural thing for me to do. And when I arrived in Cape Town, I just told people that I was a food stylist.
Nice.
And then people believe you when you tell them that you are.
But also when you pitch up and do the work, it's clear all you needed was to be given that opportunity, didn't you? You kind of brushed over your blog situation, but share with the viewers like the kinds of views you were getting on your recipes, or I don't know what they are today, but because everything's a bit more of a mix of what you're doing online. But back then you were reaching how many page views?
Yes, I think I went from 0 to 40,000 page views a month quite quickly. I remember that in the early stages, which for me, I didn't have that much reference point as to if this was a lot, but I think within the South African context, it was quite high. I definitely became one of the more prominent South African blogs because I took photography quite seriously. I kind of leant in and realized that in order to be a success in the food blogging space, in order to be on a global level, I couldn't just be having the sort of homemade little happy little sharing platform. I needed to take it a little bit more seriously. So that's when I really leaned into the photography side of things to up my game. At that time, there weren't many online photography courses available. So I had to really learn the hard way. I had my camera equipment and I had all the knowledge of the food styling and working with amazing photographers. So I did sort of have a kind of a baseline to work on, and there were a couple of photographers that I was able to, pick their brain and get some tips. But it really was a very steep learning curve. And whereas today, now you can literally get it all for free on YouTube. You can, there's so many resources for people to learn photography, and in particular food photography, which is almost like a separate niche. There are specific things to know about food photography than sort of landscape photography or other kinds of photography. And so I love that process of learning. I truly feel that when you go through the hard process of learning something, that is where the sweet spot is. That's where the magic lies. It's hard, but when you come out the other end, somehow, I don't know, I found that everything that I've ever done is very, very much on the self-taught. I self-teach myself every aspect of this business and evolve as I have over the years. And as much as it's been incredibly difficult at times, it's also been incredibly rewarding.
I want to get into personal brand at some point, but I think there's one element that I wanted to just kind of chew the fat with you. And when I read out the intro, I listed out your awards, and obviously you'd won awards for being, a food influence and food content creator. But, I've talked a bit about this word influencer, and we're pretty sure it's about our generation that we have some of the views that we do when it comes to social media. But I'd love you to share what you think of this rising concept of being an influencer and how this is kind of perceived to be a job in and of itself, I think
for me, the word influence is It's a bit confusing because I think a lot of people want to be influencers, but you have to kind of build something underneath what underpins being an influencer. In my case, I stumbled across becoming an influencer really sort of by accident, because it was just a case of consistently showing up over many, many years in the exact same area, consistently doing what I do and building up a reputation and building up trust. And as a result of that, built up the influence essentially. So I do think that in order to be an influencer, you've got to stand for something, you've got to be doing something, you have to have build a reputation around adding value, contributing, teaching, doing something.
For sure. And I think the word influencer has just become really convoluted and blurred with the perception of fame and celebrity and fortune, right? And also as a result, the term personal brand has also been kind of thrown into that muddy pool as well. So for me, these are all really different concepts. I think you can be famous, I think you'll agree, with very little substance behind you today, but that also doesn't mean you have an influence on someone's thinking or their decision-making process, which is what I would think the definition of an influencer would be. But you could be famous without actually having a strong personal brand, because we've got dozens of examples of actors who we all know and recognize because of the work they've done, because obviously they're quite visual and visible, right? But we know very little about them. So we don't know what their belief systems are. We don't know what they're passionate about outside of work. We don't, why are they doing the work that they do, unless they outwardly make a concerted effort to share that with audiences, right? I don't know if you agree, Sam, but I feel like in order to be authentically yourself and communicate why you're the professional that people should choose to work with, you need to know yourself pretty well. Would you agree?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And I also think you have to know your stuff. If you're showing up in a particular area, you need to be a little bit of an expert in that area. People will want to follow you for a particular reason. You need to demonstrate in some way that you know what you're talking about. Because why should they choose you versus choosing somebody else to follow on a particular subject matter?
It's showing that substance and depth again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like you think you need to do the work and show that you are doing in a particular niche, especially like, say, for example, food. You need to be showing up and cooking and showing that you're an expert in that. And then through that, you can show a little bit of your personality to come through to make it more of a humanness.
I think this is why when I do my personal brand strategy work with clients, we try and work on the professional side to you as well as the personal side to you, so that we can kind of develop a comfortable way for you to be able to communicate yourself that still instills trust and connection with your ideal audience. Anyway, so let's shift back to Drizzle and Dips and the Sam Linsell, the powerhouse behind the recognized delicious foodie brand. Now, you built your business and reputation over more than 15 years, so we're getting into 16 years now. And all of that was also happening with this accolade, like you mentioned before, of almost being a pioneer really in the South African online food content creator scene and that. So you're in this really unusual convergence between sustaining your online presence, frequently meeting with all these great chefs in really enviable kitchens, right? And also being recognized for your efforts on both fronts through the media and through award ceremonies. So you would have come across a lot of people with reputations that precede themselves and that. But how would you describe the concept of personal brand?
I think it's someone that is that's very knowledgeable in an area that I understand and immediately recognize them for what they stand for, and that I believe in what they do. They have trust. They have expertise in what they do, and that the word authentic is a little bit wishy-washy sometimes, definitely overused. But essentially, someone that is real versus performative. I think there are a lot of people that show up on social media and they portray a certain fake existence, or it's kind of a manufactured, and it feels like a facade. It feels like a staged situation where they are wanting to show a certain aspect of their life in a particular way, and it doesn't necessarily feel authentic in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can really tell the difference between someone who's showing up in their real self. You kind of get the impression that they would be like that if you had to meet them in real life. They kind of You don't have to give everything away, but it's just more of a real thing, a realness. And I think that is quite important. And that is what I like in terms of the authenticity angle of it. And then I'm interested in following people who show up that know what they're talking about, that are adding value, that are either educating or inspiring. I don't really like to watch people where it feels just very arbitrary, walking around, going to the gym, sipping a coffee. Not, I mean, there's a lot of content like that. And I feel like you can do that a little bit if you are 90% of the time creating
value,
educational content, value, you're improving, you're contributing, you're educating. I think then you can show a snippet of that to give a little bit of a background of your life. Some people enjoy that. But for me, that's not entertainment value. Some people might find it entertainment. I don't. Because we are so flooded with information and content online, we have to filter it out in some way. And so that's sort of where I cut it out. And I often think to myself, and I can tend to overthink this, is this piece of content adding any value to the system? So when I create a recipe, I do feel like I'm giving away something quite valuable. It's something that's been tested. It's something that's going to hopefully someone can make and use and add value to their life, make it easier. I try to share lots of tips. I try to, but then I do share a little bit of like beauty when I'm hiking, a lot of sort of nature. And that's just a moment to share a little bit of my world. I sometimes probably do a little bit too much of that. But, I am quite sensitive about what I am going to share. And is it worth sharing? I just sort of asked myself that before.
Yeah, I think there is a balance. Like you said, I think 10%, 90 is good in terms of a value ratio, I think. I think you are right. There is a flood of content at the moment, and it's kind of gotten worse with AI generated content in that it's hard to actually pick out the stuff that you do want to click on and actually watch. I sometimes wonder what people are hiding when they do create such an extensive facade of how perfectly run their life is. And I do wonder sometimes, why is that this disjointedness? And obviously I think that's what people want to see, but I think they'd probably find that people would connect better with them if they actually got to see what they really are like. And if they are just, so I think it's a shame. That's what I think. It's a shame that people feel like they have to do that.
How do you educate your clients as to how to show up more authentically
with the stories? So part of the personal brand stuff kind of ticks that box because we all have those issues, right? And what I've found is generally people tend to just hold on to everything because, like you said, you become so sensitive and you overthink like what you could possibly show. So I'll try and break that down a little bit when we do the personal brand strategy, because what we do is we go through your backstory and, what did you do when you grew up? Like, who was inspiring to you as a teenager? Or why did you make decisions you did during your career and stuff like that? That gives us a lot of threads of things to play with when it comes to professional topics for you to talk about, because the professional ones, we never have a problem coming up with the themes that we can talk about from our work perspective. But what it also does is give us a bit of an opening to look at, okay, but from your life, which parts of those are you happy to actually share about, and come up with 2 or 3 themes that you are comfortable sharing about, which actually then helps you to, like you say, drip feed those bits. So if Sam likes hikes and nature and stuff like that, then that's a nice safe category for you to share about and not have to really think about it, But then we also have like a little guarded area, if you like, of the topics you're not comfortable sharing about yourself, and they stay private. And what you'll find is actually there's a lot more that you're actually quite willing to chat about, as long as you know that this little treasure box on the side here is actually just for you, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, because we all have this issue. Yeah. Right. So I would like to talk a little bit, you mentioned earlier about the photography bit. And I think it's important for all of us to work out exactly like you've just asked around the content, is how do we demonstrate like what we do? Because you know what a website is like. A website is like, this is me as a professional, and these are my services, A, B, and C, and these are the prices for my services. But what people want to understand is what is it like to actually go through your process, or to have you on site, doing the food styling, or what's it like actually physically interacting with you and that. And what you've managed to do in spades is be really, really alert and responsive to understanding that being able to show your work in the best way is really important. Now, not all of us are cooking or baking or have something physical, so a lot of people listening will be knowledge workers, so they have years of experience and knowledge, but they don't necessarily make a thing. So you're quite lucky in that you've got both in buckets, the knowledge and expertise as well as the physical, and you've really done a lot to nail down the difference of how to share what you do in a way. So what I'd like you to maybe share with us, you've said a little bit about the photography, but how you've had to learn about these things about imagery and video, TikTok, Instagram, video became huge, and words. Can you walk us through what you've had to learn over the years, from those early blogging years was mainly SEO, was trying to work out that, and today obviously managing that, can you talk us through a little bit of that learning journey of how to express yourself and your work?
Yeah, so that touches on the topic of creativity and really what does that mean? Because I didn't really understand the kind of creativity I had in me to do all this until I started all of this. So this is to anybody out there who currently doesn't do anything in the creative space. I came from a corporate career where there wasn't that much. Marketing can be a little bit creative, but because you're working with suppliers who are doing something creative. But honestly, I had never done anything particularly creative other than doing art until matric. So I feel like, and I was quite keen at photographer, before, just taking pictures of people and things like that. But it was only until I started the career, which was literally very late in life to start and learn, or just it kind of came naturally in a way, to try and make things look beautiful, just to kind of express myself through making food look beautiful. So that's how it first started, was, okay, food needs to look beautiful. And then I needed to make it beautiful and take a photograph and get that beautiful photograph of it. Then you've got lighting and all the other things that go with that. So it's just been a little bit of a journey. And I didn't know, I had to learn some of the basics of what colors work with what, how to lay the plate out to make it make sense, and a few fundamentals. It's a bit like painting, I guess. You can learn some basics. But at the end of the day, something has to come out and you just do it. And for me, a lot of that practice of creativity was through practice, fine-tuning, repetition, and again and again. If you look at my early work, it's not great. But
it's very far back. I don't think we could probably find all that.
It is just so bad. But, it's only through the doing that you get to the place where you learn and you grow. And to the point where you can, I think there were some defining moments was when I was hired by an international magazine to shoot a feature for Delicious Australia. So that was an amazing to my career from a photography perspective, to be considered worthy of doing that. From a food styling perspective, I'd already been making food look beautiful for top clients, and I had already understood the process. And then through my blog, it was sort of a natural place for me to be able to practice all of these things without having a client, just doing it for myself. So I think that was the freedom to allow myself. Was I would think, okay, I'm going to make this beautiful cake today, and I looked for inspiration on images, and I thought, okay, this is the look and feel I want to create. And in the beginning, I had a very dark and moody kind of style of photography, which I really lent into, and I loved that process. And then at some point, I decided to go more light and bright, and just to play around with different ways to do it. And so that was the creative side that I just sort of was practice, repetition, absolutely loving it, buying lots of props, getting super excited about it, and just getting better at it, just becoming good at it. The process of just learning, becoming good, practice, and realizing that, people say you're so talented. And, maybe I am talented. Maybe there is some natural innate talent in me. I didn't know about this prior to starting this career. So I think we all live with some level of ability and creativity, and until we sort of unlock that, which is what I think a lot of people are missing in life. They don't pursue a creative outlet. So I think if you're a person out there and you're working in a corporate environment and you've got some or other passion, whether you like painting, photography, gardening, cooking, art, sewing, anything, making collages, making stuff, just making things is like our ability. It's our true humanness that I think we can stand apart from AI. AI can't do what I do. It can now copy all the work that I do, and everybody else that's creating recipes, it can go out there and copy it. But the only way to insulate ourselves and show up is to create something that didn't exist before. So what I love the most is that on a day where I decide I've got the business, you ask me how the whole flow goes. I've got the recipe, I've got the concept, I've got either a brief from a client or it's for myself. I then develop the recipe, I then take it into my studio and I decide how I'm going to shoot it, what colors, the look and feel, and I lay everything out, and then I take the photographs or shoot the video, and then it goes into editing. And that thing didn't exist before. And then
created
it. I created something. I created something that never existed, and then I put it out onto the internet, and then that's where the sort of the more sort of right brain side kicks in, when you need to figure out how to pop it onto your website, how to write the recipe,
the copy,
do the copy. You've got to think about schema and how Google's going to find you, and all sorts of technical aspects, which has also been a fascinating journey to get on top of the SEO side and all the business side of the website creation. So I love that side too. So that kicks in, and then eventually I press publish and off I go, and I launch something onto a piece of content that has, there's been a lot of work that has gone into creating that to get it to the stage where it's now live, and then I share it across my social media platforms. And as you know, when you're working on these platforms, it's there's a lot of skill to getting the content up in the right way.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with algorithms. So yeah, it's quite a process.
Yeah. And also what I like is that, you've always kept a really good eye on what's working and what's not working. And obviously that's changed over the years as well. So you talked a little bit about the SEO, but you've also launched a Substack now so that you can tell a bit more stories and kind of own your own email list, if you like.
Yes, I think going forward, we need to sort of, who knows what's going to happen with AI and with algorithms. We need to sort of give people the opportunity to connect with you more directly. I think Substack is a nice platform because it kind of reminds me of the very early days of blogging, where our recipe blogs were also a way to tell our stories about our life. Why are you publishing a recipe, something about your grandmother, or a little bit of history as to why you're excited about a particular ingredient. It was really lovely. It was like a very raw and like open way of sharing about your love of food. And now, there's more to my life than just making recipes for the internet. I also love eating out in restaurants. I do lots and lots of sort of not reviews, but more sort of kind of creating content around beautiful eating experiences, particular chefs.
I feel like they're reviews though, because they're so amazing. I'm like, I'll definitely go to that place. Or aren't they lucky Sam came to eat there?
I don't really do negative reviews. I rather just keep quiet if I like something. So I tend to only share about things that I really like. And I'm just so impressed with chefs, and it's such a hard life, and they're so creative and so amazing, and such a privilege to be able to eat the most incredible food. I mean, living in Cape Town as well, we've got the most incredible chefs, amazing restaurants. So I'm very lucky to get to dine out and to take photos and share with the world a little bit of what we have here and what chefs create.
No, it's beautiful, and I'm going to put all of your socials into the show notes, and people really need to go and have a look at your Instagram. So before we go, Sam, I mean, we talked a little about your flow there, so I won't ask you about that again. But what does the future hold for you? You're 16 years in. What does the next 5 years look like for you? What are you excited about? What do you want to get your teeth more into? What have you got going?
Yeah, so I think AI is the biggest thing that's hitting us in terms of the digital space, and there's no one really knows what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be good for us as food content
as creators.
Yeah, because Google's changing search, and that's how we derive our income, is from traffic coming to our websites, which we monetize through ads. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I'm trying my best to insulate myself going forward from the impact of AI, and to basically publish content, create value, create products that are probably going to be useful to people. And I'm working on a healthy eating ebook, which is focusing specifically around my favorite delicious high protein, low calorie meals that I eat on the regular. So that I'm hoping to get out as soon as possible, maybe by the end of the year. I think that's the main project that I'm working on right now. And then for the rest of it, I'd like to carry on doing what I'm doing because I truly love what I do. So that's, creating recipes, putting the human being behind the recipes, maybe injecting a little bit more of myself, a little bit more of my story to try and differentiate from, an AI bot. And let's hope that going forward, people are going to be looking for that and wanting that human connection around food and recipes.
I think so. And also, it's worth reminding the listeners that you don't just create social media content and you're not just making an income from ad revenue from Google. You actually, you have the work as well. So a lot of this work that you're doing gets you more of the food styling work and actually physically going and doing work for clients. So, I think you've got this multi-level of, income as well that you've got to insulate yourself to. That's like you're saying. Yeah.
One thing I'm definitely going to stop doing is just constantly getting on that hamster wheel of creating all the time, because the algorithms reward you for the more that you put out. But I'm a one-person food media business, so I'm not the same as a magazine.
Plus, it takes a lot of effort in that one thing that you do.
So I'm just going to put out things that I really love, and maybe less of it, and just turn off the noise of the algorithms. And it can be a situation where you feel like you've got to feed the beast constantly. In order to remain relevant, but actually I'm taking a little bit of a step back now from that and putting out what I really want to in my time and at more of a pace that is more manageable to prevent burnout,
sustainable,
and just otherwise it gets a bit crazy that you've got to constantly feel like you're churning out content all the time. And it's very difficult considering I touch all aspects of every piece of content that I do. So I'm not a big machine generating massive content. And also I would like to do less, I think.
But I think less is going to be more over time anyway. There is we've already kind of hit a limit of how much more content needs to be created. So I think it's a false economy thinking that if you create more, you're going to get more seen. I don't feel like that's a thing. I think if you're creating valuable content, even if you did one piece a week or two proper pieces a month, even, if they're good pieces and they're getting a lot of traction, it will still do the same job. I think that over time. Yeah. But I know what you mean. Thank you so much, Sam. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us today. You've got a really big UK following, as you said. So no doubt it's the many South Africans that live here who are drawn to your 𝗧𝗛𝗜𝗦 twists on your recipes that make us really salivate. So I also love watching your non-recipe content that you were talking about, because especially when you go and you try out the new restaurants or try new foods, or you go to launches or food related products or equipment. I know sometimes you get invited to those as influencers, but we don't get to see stuff like that, and it's pretty cool and pretty, and to see the kinds of things they get up to anyway. And I love seeing how much you enjoy what you do as well. So I feel like what was that, sorry?
I'm coming to England at the end of next
yes,
month.
you are.
And I'm spending a very concentrated week in London eating. I'm doing so much research now as to where I'm going to be eating. So I hope that everyone will follow along, because I love sharing all the things that I eat really when I travel.
That would be, that's going to be really awesome. Also, I feel like you spend this time to also connect with the new chefs. And I think it adds to, not new chefs, but, new connections maybe to you in terms of new chefs, and it just adds to your credibility as well of being the professional you are in your space, and also that they appreciate you coming to see them and coming to talk to them about food as well. And I think it's been really cool to talk to somebody who also had to start blogging in 2010, where blogging was just kind of going, and Twitter had just started, and the whole online world was, a completely different space. It's really an unrecognizable beast now, I think is the only way I can describe it. But I really applaud your ability to have managed to keep your head above the water and still thrive. And it's a testament to your commitment and consistency that you're still around to tell the tale. And I've really loved getting to know you, Sam. So let our listeners know, where can they find you if they want to follow what you're doing or they want to get in contact with you? Where's the best place to do that?
Every single thing is at Drizzle and Dip. Drizzle and Dip was every single channel that is available, I think, pretty much.
Yes.
I started out years ago building up my own audience, and slowly I've built up across all the platforms. So I'm everywhere, I think. I don't really operate on LinkedIn. It's not my space, but everything. I am on LinkedIn as myself, but I'm on basically @𝗧𝗛𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘, TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, although I mainly do YouTube Shorts. And that's pretty much where you'll find me. And my website's 𝗧𝗛𝗦𝗢𝗘.
Thank you so much, Sam. I'll pop those all in the show notes.
Okay, bye.
And that's it for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. So, what did you gain from Sam's story? For me, she's given us an example of someone who's been brave, taken leaps and steps to create something when no one else was doing anything like it. Being naturally curious and drawing from her corporate marketing background, she's proved that you can experiment and you can find a space that you can own for yourself. She's followed what she enjoyed and lent into her creativity around food. While we have many more tools and advanced technology today that make things a lot easier than it was when both Sam and I first started our businesses in 2010, this does mean that there are many, many more people in the marketplace. So what is going to make you stand out is when you become crystal clear about where you fit in, what you bring to the table, be incredibly true to who you are and what lights you up. Personal brand strategy helps you to do this in a way that feels comfortable, credible, and sustainable. Through Sam's story, there's a thread of her continuously learning new ways to do things and adjust what she's doing. Plus, she shows up consistently. Even if that frequency has changed over the years, the consistency is still there. We all have to remember that our personal and professional lives go through seasons. Plan for this, of course, but always remember who you are, why you're doing the thing that you're doing, and remember to share yourself and your story with others. This separates you from the argument about artificial intelligence being better than you or replacing what you do. If you'd like to work with me on distilling the meat and bones of what makes you, you, and how you demonstrate your considerable expertise while still being you, then drop me a message and let's get a conversation in the diary. Who do you know who could do with hearing this conversation and Sam's story? Share this episode. You know you want to. Until next time, my friend, stay strong, believe you have value, and make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘𝗟𝗟.com.